In this video we'll look at organisational culture, and in particular we'll look at the development of organisational culture and what are its attributes, what determines it, and what can go wrong with culture. Let's start by looking at the determinants of culture. The culture of an organisation is dependent on the founders. At least it's largely dependent on the founders. When an organisation has been in existence for a long time, the culture does change. It does mutate almost over time. It does vary slightly over time. But the influence of the owners or of the founders can usually still be detected within organisations. And it's their personalities, their values, and the way in which they like to construct the organisation that comes through. So it's only after a very long period of time that the influence or the mark of the founders can almost be dropped. By and large, the culture of an organisation is determined by those who set it up. It's important for the employees to understand the culture of an organisation so they can easily settle in. It's important for everyone associated with the business, in fact, to understand its culture, its way of doing things, its values and its beliefs. And if there are issues that concern, let's say, employees, then the employees presumably would have an opportunity to move on to a different company or to sell their labour elsewhere, because the culture would be in conflict with perhaps their own beliefs. There are a number of influences that contribute to the culture of an organisation, and we want to skip through these. The first one, as we talked about earlier, is really the history and the ownership of the business. And this is dependent on the individuals. This is independent, I should say, from the individuals in the organisation. The history and ownership really resides with the people who set up the business. What were they attempting to do? What were they like? What was their belief? What was their way of doing things? And the people who work for the organisation at a later stage may not hold the same values to the same degree, to the same intensity. However, there must be some general alignment of values, otherwise present-day workers, present-day managers will be in conflict with the business. Different ownership styles determine the culture. Whether it's a family business or it's held by one person within a family, or whether the belief was that the workers should have shares in the business, it all determines or helps to make up the culture of the business. The size of the business is also a determinant of the culture. Large businesses don't have that friendly family sort of tradition or background. Large businesses are businesses. They're run on the basis of perhaps efficiency and productivity, whereas smaller businesses, the culture of the manager, the culture of the owner, the culture of the founder comes through more readily, more apparently. So the size of the business also partially determines the culture. Also depends on technologies. Well, if it's a high-tech business, then the culture of the business is really determined by modern ways of working, modern ways of doing things, by the application of perhaps computers or computer technology to solve problems. Whereas in more traditional businesses, perhaps in catering or in, not saying that technology doesn't exist in catering, it does, but in catering or in some of more traditional types of businesses, the culture of the business comes through more easily. It comes through more readily. So in high-tech businesses or businesses with a lot of capital or a lot of engineering type processes, the culture of the business is not readily apparent from what the workers are doing. So technology and size are important. There's some more ideas on the slide. You may stop the video at any time and just note those down. Another determinant of the goals of the business, and this is quite a good determinant of the culture of the business, because it's what the organisation hopes to achieve. And what it hopes to achieve, perhaps, is to satisfy a need or plug a niche in the market. Perhaps its goal is to provide a service. Or there again, perhaps the goal is to make a lot of money, to be profitable and make a lot of money for the owners. So the goals of the business are important. And certainly organisations inherit ideas and skills. And there is a passing down of the culture from one almost generation to the next. New people coming into the business will be acculturated. They will learn the way the business operates. And later on they perhaps will pass on the same values to new employees. So there is a sort of a hierarchy in terms of the passing on of the culture to maintain the culture, but there's also on a horizontal level employees train each other within the business and in accordance with the culture. The environment is also a determinant of culture, and this consists of several levels. For example, what the customers require will influence the culture. Perhaps in the past, products were bought simply by reputation of the business, and the reputation of the business was an indication of the quality of the product. And perhaps nowadays the customers need warranties and guarantees, and we have legal rights, the rights of the consumer. We also have pressures from the banks and from the suppliers, and governments put pressure on business to behave in certain ways, which again can impact on the culture of the business. Certainly there is a widespread feeling that comes across from many business leaders that they wish to portray their business as ethical and as environmentally friendly, and I appreciate that maybe an element of customer relations management and in the projection of a certain image with that, but it does influence the culture. So the culture is becoming more concerned with issues from the environment being what is said about business by government and by non-governmental agencies. People also influence the culture, as you would expect. Management styles develop the organisational culture. Employees' preference for how they wish to be managed is an important factor in shaping the culture. It's not just legal requirements, it's respect at work. It's the absence of the bad parts of working, bullying and threatening. It's also the projection of a caring environment, one which is supportive of workers and understanding workers' needs and requirements. And that might be a big shift from the early phase of the business, which was perhaps more orientated towards survival, making profits, investing, and the culture was to do and be efficient. And perhaps in later years now it's adopting more a person-based view of the relationships within work. If employees are bound to a culture which they don't support, then that will cause a reaction. The reaction may be simply that they leave. They don't like the culture, they may get out. But it'll certainly be in conflict with the culture, and it'll be in conflict with the business. This could lead to all sorts of things like industrial action, high demands from the employees. It could mean that the workers don't apply themselves. They don't see the objective of the business as being one worth following. They have low productivity and even low quality, levels of quality in the workmanship, which will become apparent within the marketplace. And a lot of energy would have to be dissipated in supervision and in trying to get the workforce to achieve the objectives set by management. So having a culture where people follow it of their own volition, follow it freely, is far preferable. So the culture is important. It impacts on productivity, it impacts on the quality of the goods, it influences the working environment, and it means the difference between a pleasant working environment or one which is unhappy. So that's our introduction to culture and small talk about culture at work. And I think that just about concludes this video, so thank you for watching.